think the fact that I enjoyed it as a youngster has helped me transition into a coach a little bit more. In 2010, I took on the head coach's role. So this will be my 14th season, 13th season involved in that. One of the first sessions I was doing, and he said, "You don't have to shout all the time." And I was thinking, well, I don't think I was shouting. So it's been a really challenging 4 years, but I feel like we've come out of it really well. To have 23 athletes in one sport in the top 30 in the country for their event, it's pretty good going.
Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Sportscast Jersey. Today we are joined by Jersey Tigers swimming coach Nathan Jegou. How are we doing, Nathan?
Yeah, all good, buddy. All good. And yourself?
Yeah, not bad, thanks. Not bad at all. Like always on my podcast, every week I start with a simple question, and that is, have you always been into sport since a young age?
Yeah, I mean, to look at me now, you probably think no, but yeah, I've always been in sport, pretty much every sport really. I've never really not enjoyed a singular sport. When I was younger, I took part in everything. My old coach would probably say to the detriment of my own little swimming career, but yeah, I've loved sport all the way through. I'm a big Everton fan as well, so and obviously with the Rugby World Cup just around the corner, it's a good summer.
Yeah, definitely. Tough start for Everton this season.
Yeah.
Yeah. Swimming wise, you touched on it there. You swam when you were younger. When did that all start? When did the love of swimming start?
Um, I, my earliest memory of swimming was with Jersey Swimming Club back when I was like 9, 10. I was lucky enough to have Roy Horsfall as a coach, who, was big into Jersey Swimming Club, and he was a massive factor of Jersey swimming for a long period of time. And I used to do rookies down on the beach and all the surf clubs and all that sort of thing. So from that young age is my earliest memory of swimming. I was at Lemuria swim school with Maureen, obviously Malcolm's mum, as I learned to swim. But yeah, moved to Jersey Swimming Club, and then in the late 90s, switched across to Tigers and sort of had a competitive career till I was about 17, 18, really.
Yeah. What were your standout moments of that career that when you did swim?
I mean, probably the national medals that I got. To be honest, I actually really just loved going away with team trips. Most of my best mates, from now, are from swimming. A lot of my friendship circle is from swimming base, and in those days, obviously a little bit less red tape, but we used to go on big trips, really big trips. For 6, 7 days at a time in the summer. In the holidays, and yeah, they're the best memories. I mean, just being away with your pals and doing stuff you shouldn't be doing, which we probably wouldn't get away with now. But yeah, that's the greatest memory I've got from swimming.
Yeah, definitely. And did you enjoy all the training? Was it as hard then as it is now?
Yeah, I think obviously, yeah, every sport changes, doesn't it? You learn a little bit more comes into it from the scientific background, and yeah, I mean, I love training. I actually felt like it helped me perform better at my other sports, particularly football. In terms of aerobic capacity and being able to play a lot of games during the week, and yeah, I in a way probably loved the training side more than the racing side sometimes. But I was around with Dan Hawksworth and people like that, and Dan's an animal. So we used to have really good training bands together. So yeah, I mean, I enjoyed the whole process of it. I can't lie, and that's probably why it's kept me going as a coach. Because obviously, it's not an easy sport to coach in terms of timings and everything like that. But I think the fact that I enjoyed it as a youngster has helped me transition into a coach a little bit more.
Yeah, that was going to be the next question. Obviously, well-known coach here in Jersey now. Where did that all start? Was that natural for you?
Probably not. I mean, back when we were swimming, one of the things the club always did was ask some of the senior swimmers to give back to the program itself. So we all did our NPLQ lifeguards, as it's called now, and we all did our ASA level 1s and 2s, and we used to help teach at the Fort Region on the Saturday with the Learn to Swim program. So I always did a little bit of that. And when I finished Highlands, I didn't really know what I was going to do, and I sort of was just doing little bit part jobs. And Malcolm Paris got in touch, and he wanted to relaunch Lemuria Swim School at Les Ormes, and yeah, we sort of took off from there really in terms of teaching swimming. And then on the side, I was helping Tigers out just because I was here. Most of my mates were at uni. I was doing a lot of voluntary work or lifeguard work. And in the end, Dan Corden was leaving, and they sort of, Christina and Paul asked me if I wanted to be a bit more involved. So I took on I think it was like 2008, I took on the performance squad. So it was quite a small squad for me at the time. And then, yeah, it's just sort of gone from there, really. Obviously, in 2010, I took on the head coach's role. So this will be my 14th season, 13th season involved in that.
Yeah, yeah, amazing. Then, do you remember maybe your first sessions and like you did coach? How were they, and were you nervous going into it?
Yeah, it was. I mean, it's like anything. I remember one of the first, Paul DeFer was obviously my coach, and I asked him to come along and help. One of the first sessions I was doing, and he said, "You don't have to shout all the time." And I was thinking, well, I don't think I was shouting, and obviously I was. And yeah, so I think you're always nervous. Plus, at the time, I was quite young. I was only like 23, 24, and I was coaching 16, 17-year-olds. So some of them I actually swam with, like JJ Galashan, that I was actually training with when I finished. So, little things like that. But you just evolve, don't you? You learn. You take a lot more now. I think if I look back at how I coached then, I was probably a lot stricter. I was probably loud and brash, and you're a young man and going into a world of like sport like that. But yeah, I mean, obviously you learn from every season you learn something new, whether good or bad. And I feel like now, obviously after 14 years, I feel like I'm probably in a better place now than I was then. So yeah.
Definitely, definitely. And you touched on your own coaches, and I speak to other coaches, and they say they learn off so and so and what have you. How much have you learned off your previous coaches and taken that into your own style?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, like, I owe everything to Roy Horsfall and Paul, really. Roy, when I was younger, taught me like just not even about swimming, just about being a good sportsman. Um, the dedication it takes to achieving anything. He was coaching up to he was like 83, and I remember going on trips and we'd stop in an airport, and he'd be like, "Oh, this is so and so at your age. They were doing it this time." And this is obviously way before everything was on the internet, and he just would reel off times, and like the passion he had for it. I was thinking, man, if I could be anything like that in anything in life, you do really well. And obviously, when I moved across to Tigers, Paul, he installed what it takes to be an elite athlete. And some people will say that's a bit crazy at the young age that we do it, but a lot of swimmers go on and succeed in life in a lot of different areas purely because of the dedication they put into it. And I think from them two, I've learned a lot. And obviously, Sian, Paul's daughter's our assistant at Tigers, and Liam, his son, is one of the top coaches in Australia. So it's obviously filtered down pretty well. And I just think it's little things. It's not even so much from the swimming. It's just, like I say, like life lessons that you always teach. And I got to say, from Tigers' point of view, we always try and say that forget the results bit of it. You just want kids at the end of the year to go, yeah, I've had a great year. I've loved being around the club. I've loved being on trips with my mates. And you hope you yourself in that environment can help them flourish, whatever they choose to do. And that's what we've tried to always do. And I think that I've learned that from particularly Roy and Paul, myself.
Yeah, definitely. I agree that the sport's so good for that, just creating a good person and building those good characteristics. Um, what I wanted to ask before we go into it's been a really good summer for the club and those involved in it. Tigers itself, obviously, you've been involved for many years now. How much has it developed over the years, and how much has it improved?
Well, I mean, obviously, a bit like sport on the island, ebbs and flows all the time. But in the early 2000s, obviously the move away from Fort Regent had a massive detrimental effect on the club. And just in terms of size, numbers, and also what the club were allowed to do, we weren't allowed to have a learn to swim program when we moved from Fort Regent to Hope Valley. So that meant we relied on a lot of other learn swim programs or clubs to give us their swimmers. And when I say give them, more often than not, they're not going to give you them. They just sort of fall out, or they come and ask what you do and something different. And I think that had a real big effect on the club. And we went from something like 700 members down to, when I came back in 2010 from Australia, we were at like 118 members, and we were bleeding money. And it's taken us a lot. We're up to like 550, I think, in terms of membership now. And, we've got a learn to swim program, and we can look after ourselves financially in that aspect. But I think from our point of view, what we've tried to build is that there's something for everyone at the club. When you join at 4, all the way through to our master's program, and we've done that in a relatively small coaching team. When I first started coaching, we had 3 full-time coaches, 2 full-time coaches and a part-time coach. We had 2 administrators, all paid. We're now down to me as just a full-time coach, with Sean as the assistant coach, who puts in way above what her paid hours are. And we've got 1 administrator, yet we're 5 times the size we were when I came back in 2010. And part of that's down to money. And part of that's down to being able to attract someone to come to the island on not a very good wage, and, the living costs over here. So from that point of view, like I say, from going from 117 members up to what we are now, that's always been a big challenge of ours, and we're really proud we got there. I mean, we would love to grow more if we could. We just haven't got the pool time or the staff. But yeah, I mean, it's been a roller coaster of a journey, particularly through COVID. And swimming as a sport was one of the worst hits, because the whole science behind whether you can swim indoors, what it was like, all that. And actually, Jersey was one of Tiger, should I say, was one of the last swimming clubs in the UK to get back in the water because of our government proposals. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but we were hit one of the hardest. And the club, to their credit, through that challenge, paid all the staff. Made sure members got, when we could, every member got a session once a week. We could only have 6 people in the pool, and you can imagine how long that took and stuff like that. So it's been a really challenging 4 years, but I feel like we've come out of it really well, and we've done a really good job. And that's credit to everyone involved, including the volunteers and even the past members who've set that up beforehand.
Yeah, and I wanted to touch, you just said there, over COVID. How hard was it to keep the motivation up as well? Obviously, no comps abroad, in England or what have you. So how hard was it to keep the motivation, both as a coach and to coach the actual swimmers themselves?
I think one of the joys of COVID was it allowed us to understand what we had, prior to that, and lost. I think that allowed, swimmers were desperate to come back. We had a bigger waiting list when we came back from COVID, and we were thinking, oh, we're going to lose members left, right, and centre. We actually came back to a bigger waiting list because people just, I think, and swimming particularly, because people wanted to go out into the sea and swim. I actually think swimming, in a weird way, benefited from that, because people realised, actually, we want our kids to be able to go out and enjoy the sea and swim at any period and stuff like that. So that aspect of it was great. I mean, when the kids came back, they were so on it, and they were so willing to do anything really just to get back and racing. I mean, during it, we put on land work sessions. We were at Deverne 3G pitch, and Mr. Cooper, big thanks to him for allowing us to use that. And we were doing all sorts. We were doing bake-offs online and stuff like that. So we tried to keep the community together. I think Jersey was lucky though, wasn't it? We had really good weather the first time around, and people kept themselves super fit. And yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Moving on to this summer, obviously it's been a busy one, but it's been a really good one. One of the standout events was the Island Games. Obviously all the swimmers smashed it. How proud are you? Firstly, let's talk about the training that leads up to the actual events themselves, and how much work the athletes put into it.
Yeah, I mean, look, the elite guys are always working hard through the year. I mean, we start in September and we finish, beginning of August. So it's 11-month season. And the top guys are doing 2 hours a week plus strength and conditioning. Some of them obviously doing other sports as well. So, they're putting in a lot of hours, and, more often than not, they're doing 3 early mornings before school. 5:30, 7:30. We do a Saturday morning 6 to 8, so they get the weekend. And they always put in the work. And I've said this all the time. My job's really easy to get up and go and coach when you've got I mean, we've got like 30, some mornings like 38 kids at the door waiting to be coached at 5:30. I mean, there's not many sports that can do that. And we're actually got waiting lists for squads now willing to do that. So that aspect's been pretty easy this year. I mean, trying to, you know, motivate them has been simple. I mean, again, also because Island Games hadn't happened for 4 years, that was an easy motivation. People wanted to get involved in it. There's a whole generation of kids that sort of it skipped. So, there was a load that were just eager to do it, and that showed in how many of our team were making their debut at the games. Plus, last season at Nationals, we had one of our best seasons, and that has a knock-on effect as well. Like, people were like, "Oh, I want to be part of that." And we had 18 qualify for Nationals this year locally. I think we had from Tigers, and then we had, and if you add in the guys at universities or boarding schools, we had up to like 23, and that's to make that Nationals, you have to be the top 30 in the country. So to have 23 athletes in one sport in the top 30 in the country for their event, it's pretty good going. So that aspect, it's easy to get them motivated for the games. It was easy to get them motivated for the season. They've worked really hard. And obviously the more the season goes on, the more they start to realize that they could be selected for these sort of teams and or nationals. So yeah, it always builds. Like, we feel like we always build. We always do the first term, and it's a bit like, oh, what we're getting ourselves into. Middle term, they start racing. By the third term, they're eager to get out there and show all the year's work, basically.
Yeah, brilliant insight into how the year goes as well. Island Games itself, obviously, we were Texans throughout, and obviously we were both here. But how good was that experience, and how good did they do?
Yeah, I mean, we as a club, I mean, when people come and talk to us and say, "What's your target?" We always aim for nationals. We always say, right, if you can qualify for nationals, it's a filter down effect. So if you qualify for that, if you can, make a national final, be top 20, whatever it is, more often than not, you're going to do relatively well at the competition slightly under, which is Island Games. And we're not scared to say it. That's a byproduct of our season. It's short course. It doesn't add a lot to the national program. But having said that, nearly all those kids went there, stepped up. It's a week long away from home, and the swimmers we stayed in the scouts hut, so we didn't actually stay in a hotel. We took our own chef. They had to sleep in sleeping bags and digs and stuff like that. And so it was a good week for them to learn to swim heats in the morning, finals in the afternoon, and to be part of a team, to have lows, and some really good highs. And we're just more proud that collectively they went there and they enjoyed it. If you speak to all of them, whether they swam well or not, they actually enjoyed it. They did a really good job. And then obviously the knock-on effect of that was a lot of them actually then went on and improved again for nationals or youth Commonwealth games or whatever they did. So it's always good to watch here. I wasn't there, but obviously Sean said, the atmosphere of the team was great. And for us, actually, it was a relatively young team. I know Gemma was there. I know Robbie was there. And we had some of the guys come over from the UK, and then Isaac and Tom. But even like Isaac and Tom, last time they went, they were like 15, only 19 this time. It's really, theoretically, they'll probably be there again in 2 years' time, maybe in 4 years' time. And with Gemma being a bit of a stalwart of the games. So, I mean, Robbie's obviously done a few, and he's obviously retiring now. But actually, if you look at the rest of the team, the likelihood is they'll still be swimming in 2 years' time. Whether they can make the team or not is up to them. But yeah, that's the exciting bit. It's like it's a relatively young team, and obviously it's all in Guernsey. It's a local neighbour, they were swimming relatively well with their seniors. So yeah, all those things. Relays. I mean, the way the competitions go now, we don't do as many relays. We haven't had an inter-insular since 2019. So all those things added into a really good week, and the kids performed, to their best level, and particularly the youngsters, they really stepped up. And yeah, we're excited for them because they enjoy it, and that's what we want. That's anything in sport, isn't it? You want the kids to really be excited about coming up and racing, and yeah, that drives it. And Nine Games does do that. But for us, we try and aim, if they can be the best they are nationally, we feel like that will just take care of itself. So they'll perform at the Nine Games just because they're doing really well nationally, and that's our target.
Yeah. Let's talk about the nationals then, and talk a bit more about them for those who don't know about them as much as the Island Games or what have you, and also how have you done this year?
Yeah, so nationals is changed in the last 6 years. You used to qualify for a qualifying time. So if you swam a time during the season, you made nationals. They do it on a ranking system now, which is quite new for swimming. And particularly with COVID, I think it came in 2018. So we had 1 year, then we had another year, and then COVID hit. So it's still relatively new. So we we can't qualify locally. We have to go to the UK to race. You have to be in a 50-meter pool. You can only qualify during the months of March through to May. So again, in the UK, a lot of them will just go and pick galas easy. We have to pick a gala, make sure we go there and race well, and we normally try and do 2 or 3. And then what happens is if you're top 24 in the country for that event, you get an invite to British nationals. If you're not in the top 24 in the country for that, but you are in the top 20, say for England afterwards, you then get an invite to the English nationals. So it goes British nationals first at the end of July, then English nationals. So relatively speaking, you're normally in the top 40, 45 in the country, whether you go to one or the other. And obviously, if you go to British, you're in the top 24. That's what you've done. So this year we had 18 qualify for that locally. It's a week-long gala up in Sheffield for British, and it's like a 5-day gala in Sheffield for the English. And yeah, you're against the best in the country. And I think last year we did really well. We finished as the second highest performing club, which was great. Like for us, that was a massive achievement. We've never done that before. But then last year it was all a bit like, oh, are we swimming well? Is it still a reflective part of COVID? Stuff like that. Whereas this year, I mean, the performances across the country, particularly in the junior level, has been amazing. So actually to have 18 up there was great, and we performed really well. I mean, obviously Sam Sterry took 3 titles home, and Matty Defans picked up a couple of medals, and just the performances generally there were amazing. And then obviously we had the 2 boys at the European Youth Olympics as well, so they didn't go, but that was happening at the same time as British nationals. So and then the following week at English, I think Sian had something like 16 swimmers, and nearly all of them making their debut. So again, it was really good. She loved it, and a lot of them is a big eye opener. We're a pretty small nation in terms of like physicality. You go over to the UK, and you get some massive unit from Sheffield who's like just powering up and down the pool. So all those sort of things, they don't get to see it necessarily, particularly against the guys from Scotland and the north of England. So it's always a good eye opener. And again, you just want them to walk away and go, oh, I want to do better next year. That's the challenge. They like to come and go, oh, I want to do better. I want to do something different. And I think all of them, they loved it. And from our point of view, that's where we look at. We celebrate that as the most in the club. Those guys we recognize and we say, right. And you think, if we've got 18, they're at that level, it just drives the whole squad up. We've got a squad of 33. It means the other, 15, 16 want to come in and be there with them. They don't want to miss out. So for us, that's been enjoyable, really enjoyable to be part of that journey. And that's probably what we're most proud of. I mean, when I came back again from 2010 as a club, we were sending 6 or 7 swimmers at that level. So, we've always wanted to try and drive those numbers up. So we're sort of getting there, and, we've still got more work to do. And whether they win medals or not, it's not necessarily the point. It's more that we've got a squad of swimmers at that level. And again, then it filters down, to your Ironing Games and other things like that.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously, there's a growth in swimmers at that level. How much do you enjoy seeing the development? Obviously, you're there every single training session. How much do you enjoy seeing the improvement and development of the swimmers themselves?
Yeah, I mean and again, I go back to that's all we're in it for. Whether some kid comes in and says, "I want to be, able to do 4 lengths in 2 minutes," or they want to go to nationals and try and win a medal. Like we just want to be part of that journey. And I say it all the time. Like sometimes they don't make it. They don't quite hit their goals. But actually, if they've enjoyed the journey to it, that for us is the best bit. I mean, and if kids go on to be successful, great, like superb. I mean, we talk about this current crop. I mean, Isaac and Tom Defans are both former British champions. They moved to boarding school literally the year COVID hit. I mean, they're, for them, bless them, they've had 2 years of just complete uncertainty. And, I see them and Robbie and Gemma and Harry and Nathan all part of the sort of bunch that sort of started it off. And, I mean, and Harry and Gemma are very good examples. It's like, well, actually, if you want to go and make, go to university and get a scholarship and get that all paid for, swimming can be part of that journey. If you're really successful at the end of it, great. But if not, I mean, Gemma, and you've had her on, you've spoken to her, like I think she's loved her swimming journey. I think wherever it's taken her academically or not, she's just loved it. Same for Harry. I mean, if you spoke to Harry as a 15-year-old, he'd give you a completely different answer to what he is now. But I don't think, the fact he finished 6th at a Commonwealth Games in front of 12,000 screaming Australians, he would have that every day of the week. And I look back and think I'm actually more proud of the fact that when we had that conversation when he was 15, he was like, nah, I can't do that. And you're like, well, you can do whatever you want, but and then he goes on and does it. That's the best bit. And like I say, whether they're successful at swimming or not, it's irrelevant, but it's the journey part of it. So I do love getting involved in all that. I do, we know we're going to lose and they're either going to leave us at 16 or 18, more often not to go to boarding school or university. But like, they always come back and have a conversation. The lads always text us to see how we're doing. And that is more important than, whether they're swimming well or not. It's like that, if they need advice, they can come to the club and we can give that to them. So yeah, we love the journey. We love the whole development of it all. We love being part of their lives in that aspect. But yeah, it's a good moment for the club at the moment. So we enjoy it. You got to take the highs when they come.
Yeah.
So yeah, the lows are just around the corner. So yeah, we at the moment it's buzzing all round.
Yeah, absolutely. And part of that buzz came from the Youth Commonwealths as well. You went on that trip. How good was the trip, and how good was it to see the swimmers go and challenge themselves over there as well?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, I loved it. I mean, I think that's my fifth Youth Commonwealth Games. So it's always great to go and pit yourselves against like the Commonwealth's best. I think this group of kids particularly is probably the most enjoyable trip. I think collectively they've been brilliant together, and they were successful. I think we made something like 10 finals, 11 finals, a couple medals in there. But as a group, they all excelled. They all sort of improved on something that they qualified for. And it would have been easy after everything, including 9 games, including the Youth Olympics for Isaac and Philip, to just sort of be like, oh, we've had a good year. Like you go there and you sort of say, well, but they stepped up again. And yeah, I mean, I loved it. I mean, you always wonder where you are in the world in terms of how well they're doing, and they stepped up. Like to have 11 finalists, which means they're in the top 8. I think they've done a really good job, and yeah, I loved the whole culture of it. I mean, the other sports, like Sienna and Luke both train at the club, so they're both swimmers for us. I mean, Sienna obviously won medals individually at Iron Games, and she did a relay for us when we were in the youth games. So she, her success is felt by the group because they train together. And Luke, trains 4 times a week with us back in Jersey as well. And then obviously Jamie, I mean, I thought Jamie did really well. He was he's the guy that's coming into a group of 8 athletes who know each other quite well, and he smashed it, and he went on to make 2 finals, and he was happy to make a semi-final when we spoke beforehand, and he properly involved himself in the group. And I think that's the best bit of it, is actually you're bringing athletes from different sports and make them go away together. And that's something Jersey don't do that often.
Yeah.
And actually they mixed really, really well. And that was the exciting bit. And it's like, well, actually, if there's another main Commonwealth Games somewhere down the line, those guys have been there and done it, and they've worked well together, and you hope they're all there in 2026 or 7 or 2030 if there is one. And that's a stepping stone, isn't it? And again, I go back to Harry. Harry's a good example of that. Like, he went to Samoa, made a final in Samoa. 3 years later, he's making a final at the main games, and that's what we want. If one of those can step up and to make a final at the main games or go on to get full senior international selection, great. That's the whole point of that trip, isn't it? It's all about learning, whether they swam well or not. It's whether they, if they can now progress on, great.
Final few questions. One I want to ask is, do you think swimming gets enough coverage and support from both financially and from other media kind of outlets?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously every sport feels like they're hard done by in that sort of sense. We always want more. Like, doesn't matter what coaches you chat to, we're always going to support our sport. We're always going to feel like we should get a little bit more. I think part of the problem is probably us as a sport. Do we shout loud enough? Do we create enough noise on that aspect? Like I said, I'm pretty active on social media, but I don't go, chasing articles necessarily. That's some other sport, and that's not a negative on them, by the way. That's just they're more than willing to do that, and I feel like some of them do it very, really well. I think also as partly a national media sort of reflection on our sport. And I said to you in text that the World Championships of Swimming were on, and BBC didn't even pick it up this year. And we did better than the World Championships of Athletics, but that's everywhere. And actually you think no one's heard of the swimming, no one's, and that so I think that filters down a little bit. I think locally as well, a lot of the team sports have like a bit of a monopoly on sometimes on the reports. And I have spoken to the JP about this and, how they get themselves out there and chat to some sports. And I mean, from my point of view, I think the danger is we forget how popular other sports are. I mean, yesterday, and again, I think it's fantastic. I think it's needed. There's an announcement there's 20,000 going towards a female, football development officer. It's like, oh, that's great. That is fantastic. But football is a free sport. It's a popular sport already on the island. There's no money given to swimming. There's no money I'm aware of given to gymnastics for development officers. Football already has quite a big infrastructure of paid people. And I know Miles picked it up and, why football? Why not rugby? And I think and again, like I say, every sport will probably come here and moan about that. But I look at it and go, right, well, that's 20,000. I'm the only full-time qualified coach in the island. Actually, if you gave Tigers, and I know people will say, well, that's Tigers, but if you gave us 20,000, we'd probably go and get another full-time coach. So I think, there's a problem in Jersey and sport in general. I think one, there's probably too many clubs in some sports, swimming being one of them. There's a finite amount of pool time. There's loads of swim schools, and that's people's businesses, so it's hard to say it. But there's also 2 swimming clubs, and it's like, do we need to? My personal opinion is no. You can actually do better than what you've done. Obviously, we've spoken before about facilities. That's all well and good. Who gets priority on those facilities? I'm always going to shout for my club. Someone's going to shout for their club. So I think that aspect, we've got a bit of a problem on the island that, a lot of private companies and clubs have been able to grow, so to the point where it's like, well, who takes precedence? My concern for swimming in particular is the cost. The cost for someone to learn to swim on the island is extortionate. And actually it should, and we know this through Jersey Sports with their primary school thing, that shouldn't be the case. Every kid on the island should be able to swim. And my concern is, like I've said to you privately, it's almost gone up 500% since 2010. I mean, where does it stop? At what point do we stop? Us as a club alone are paying, north of £70,000 in pool hire. What do we get for that? No one comes and opens up for us. No one's there to check. We have to do that all ourselves. We have to pay our own lifeguards. And this is, again, not a criticism of football. When they go to Springfield, they don't have to open up. There's a groundsman there doing that. So there's a groundsman putting out the goals and checking the lines. That's nothing to do with the clubs. They don't do that. And part of me is like, well, they've just got an injection of 20,000 for a sports start. Great. And they should do. I'm not saying they shouldn't. But the danger is, I said to you privately, like, some of our swimmers are paying over £100 a month to learn to swim. They're then paying extortionate money to get off island. At what point are we neglecting, a good proportion of the island being able to swim at a good level? And people will say, oh yeah, but you're paid. Yeah, I am. But then I feel like we justify that in terms of performances and how kids go off island and then perform. Athletics used to have a development officer in Andrew Winnie. He's gone. That's never been replaced. There's a lot of sports out there that have sort of just been forgotten about. And I do feel like the team sports are in paper a lot. They get a lot of mention. They get a lot of support in that aspect that, they're always thought of. And again, I'm not saying they don't deserve it, but there are, there's a plenty of other sports out there that are big. And we have 500 members. I know Lemuria when I was there, nearly had 2,000 kids.
Yeah.
I mean, that's as a sport. I mean, I don't know how many people are playing rugby and how many people are playing football. I can guarantee there's a lot of people swimming, and probably more swimmers than there are some of the other sports. And it's like, right, what point do we say, right, they need help? Because I can tell you now, if we keep having to pay what we're having to pay, there's going to be a big crash on the island. And bear in mind that money we give them, that's supplementing something somewhere.
Yeah.
So if the club's not here, they've got to find £80,000 from somewhere. So I think it's got to be thought better in terms of all the sports. I think us as sports need to chat to each other a little bit more. We have a lot of crossover. We obviously, as I said, triathlon particularly, we have a lot of triathletes that train with us, and we have squads that try and assist them in that. So again, I know for them to go away, they've got to pay for their bikes. They've got to pay for, there's so much they've got to pay for. So we try and, narrow down the squads where they can be in a good squad, but not have to pay the same as the top squads. And they get a little bit less for it, but they get what they need. So yeah, so I feel like swimming is is almost forgotten about sometimes in some aspects. We could probably do a little bit better, maybe shout a little bit louder. But as I said to you, there's 20 odd islanders that finished, who are selected to represent nationals, which means they're in the top 25, 35 in the country. I mean, that, that's unbelievable. That is unbelievable. And that's not all us, but that's them. And it's like, right, what have they got for that?
Yeah.
What do they what have, and I know there's a travel grant, but £50 for a trip away is appreciated. I'm not saying, but it's no dent in a £700 trip, £800 trip, which they have to do, 7, 8 times a year. And I'm not the only sport, I know there's a lot of sports out there that will say they're exactly the same, and I agree. But like as I said to you, we don't have a choice. If they want to make nationals, they have to swim a minimum of 3 times in that qualification period, and that's a given. So how what do we do for that? And they don't have a choice in that. We used to have a choice. We used to be able to qualify locally in a 25-meter pool. We can't do that anymore. We have to race in a 50-meter pool. And we want to get off island and race, but there's at a point where the Phillips, the Isaacs, the Dodds and Meg Hansford, they can't just. I mean, Megan, bless her, she's got a family of like 3 siblings that also swim. I mean, like, what if they all turn into national swim? You know what I mean? That's an education there that some of them are paying out just to be swimmers, and that breaks my heart. That's the bit I feel like we can do better as an island. I know government's in a hard place, and there's cuts everywhere and stuff like that. But you just have to look at somewhere like the Faroe Islands. I mean, the Faroe Islands have got amazing facilities that they don't pay for. Like, you speak to them, and their thought process is you get the youth doing sport. It has a positive effect on mental health, the medical industry and all that. They don't have, the hospitals are not oversubscribed because they're fit, they're healthy. They see that as a way of cutting down problems further down the line by giving to the youth and keeping them out of trouble and antisocial behavior and stuff like that. There's a lot of good clubs on the island that don't get a lot of support, who are doing their best. And as I said to you, Friday night, I can guarantee you in 5 weeks' time, Friday night, 2.5 hour session, I'll have 35 kids there till 6:30 training. And then the next morning at 6:15, we'll have something like 52 kids at the Kennervay training. Like, they're getting up and doing it, but the cost for them to do that is getting higher and higher every year. And the club have done really well to try and reduce those costs. And as I said to you, I would love to have another coach. I think we as a club would perform so much better, and that's something as a collective with the other clubs in the island we've got to talk to. But we can do better. We can still do better, and
Yeah.
I want to do better, and I want the swimmers to have better and have more opportunity. And so it's a fine line between going and moaning too much. I mean, like, Hope Valley's pretty old. I mean, all the pools in the island are pretty old, and they're talking about new pools and stuff like that. It's all well and good. They've got to be fit for purpose, and they've got to be affordable. I've sat here before. Yeah, give me a 50-meter pool, only if it's affordable and it's fit for purpose, and it's accessible. There's no point having a 50-meter pool and then 3 pools get shut down, and the cost of running that pool is so expensive that it's put onto the swimmers and the clubs again. And also, you don't know who's going to get what pool time. Makes no sense. So yeah, I mean, like I say, hopefully, now that we're doing quite well, it always takes one or two superstars and puts the sport into the public's domain. We're doing well at the moment. But, in 6 years' time, we might not be at the same level, but we'll still be in the same commitment and delivering the same sort of program for the same number of kids. So hopefully, I mean, I'm hoping in the next 5, 6 years, we know more about the pools on the island and what's happening and all that sort of stuff, and sport on the island in general. It's taken a big knock, a lot of them, and we're due some good news soon, hopefully.
Yeah, definitely. And with the cost, obviously, you mentioned the mental health side of things, but also for the actual athletes pushing to go to those levels. How worried are you that you might miss some because of the cost of it?
Yeah, I mean, look, if you were to have Shana's conversation, it's we've regularly had some parents ask us which one's more talented because we can afford to send one into swimming. And you're sitting there thinking, well, can't say. Like, at 15, 16, they might be great, but at 25, they might be superb. And that changes all the time. And so to have that conversation is quite hard, and to hear it's even more heartbreaking. And also, again, even for some parents, like, they've got a talented kid, okay, might be nationals. They know they've got to go away these 3 times. We've had some this year be like, well, they can go away once. And if they perform well, great, we'll take them. But if they don't, and you're sitting there thinking, well, it shouldn't be like that. It should be like, well, actually, this kid could be one of the best in the country. We want to get them there. And I think, and it's stressful for families, that, and that's the worst bit, isn't it? It's like, and I'm a parent to 2 kids, and we know times are generally just hard across the board, but we shouldn't have to choose between sending one to one sport and one to not that sport because of financial restrictions, particularly on an island as affluent as this and as accessible as this. Like, it takes 10 minutes to get to any pool, wherever you are on the island, it takes 10 minutes to get to a pool somewhere. And actually, that should be a given right, that you can go and have a swim session or swim lesson, and you shouldn't really have to worry about the cost of it. Now, I know that's probably never going to happen, but I still think, there's large swathes of this community who kids are not learning to swim because we haven't got a purposely built learn to swim pool, and because the cost of learning to swim on the island is extortionate. And that's happening more and more. It's not happening less. Like this year, you can guarantee there'll be more and more families who have had kids who won't be able to afford to send their kids to learn swim programs. And I think that is stressful. I mean, I go down the beach knowing my boys can swim. That's great. But that, again, I personally feel like everyone that is down that beach should have a
Yeah.
child that can swim. And I just feel like that's where we're behind some places. I know not the UK, but other places in the world, again, it's a given. Most of them, they can, if they've got, I came from Australia, and okay, Australia is sort of changing the way when it's, in terms of private facilities, but they've got that many facilities. Like, learn to swim over there. It's not hard. Like, you can find a really cheap program. You can find, but nearly all of them can swim, and all the schools there have a pool. And again, I know that's an extreme, but they're swimming, they're having a good time, they're learning to swim, and I feel that aspect of it is more demoralizing, that the cost of a young family coming to learn to swim now is so extortionate that 10 years time, what does the sport look like at my end, but also what does the health and safety factor look like down on the beaches and the hospitals? And they're closing, I know they're not, but they're going to close Aquasplash eventually, and you hope they keep to their promise that they'll build a facility before they close it. Because again, I know for a fact that pool's ran during mornings, lunch, evenings, which is great. It should be. It's a town pool. But could you imagine if they actually built a learn to swim purpose facility also in the town pool, how accessible that would be to a lot of people that can't access? Hope Valley is a school pool we do learn to swim out of, and it's not purposely built for that. We've got to put in features to make it more safe and easier to teach. You should have a nice warm 15-meter pool that parents can take their kids to and have a good learn swim lesson, and not have to pay £100 a term for each child. And so that's aside from my job as Tigers, that's just a swimming perspective that I think we can do that on the island. And when people say they can't, they're lying.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's good to talk about this stuff and hopefully open up a few minds and eyes to the whole situation as well. Um, Moving on a bit, final kind of question, I guess. What's next for you? Are you still loving what you're doing? Are you going to coach until you stop loving it as well?
Yeah, I mean, you see, don't you? I mean, I'm blessed that this year I was on a British Coaches Distance Initiative, which is great to be part of. We had a lot of roundtable discussions. There's a lot of big coaches on there that were coaching when I was swimming, and I was sort of thinking, oh my God, I'm in a conversation with them now. And, they've coached Olympians and stuff like that. So that aspect's been brilliant. It's been nice to be part of. I am blessed in Jersey because we do have the Commonwealth Games. We do have those sort of things. I think while the boys are young and my wife's happy in what she's doing, there's no reason not to be coaching. Again, is Tigers still want me? What's happening on that front? It's not just me. And the other aspect is, can we make the club bigger and stuff like that? And there's ways around that. And I guess if we do, am I part of that journey? We'll see. But yeah, I'm still loving it at the moment. I can't say we start again up next week. So we've actually had a longer break than normal, and I'm really looking forward to it. I think the time, it was hard during COVID, and we've sort of come out of that, and it's been really good the last couple of years. And I'm still not quite 40 yet, so I'm still relatively young. Boys are young, so yeah, I'll see. I mean, you say yes now. You could ask me in 3 months' time, and I might be like, no chance. It's just been a bad year. But I got to say, I'm always really appreciative of the parents that we have, like because that more often than not they make your job easier or harder, and that goes down to their kids as well. And I've said this to the group we currently got. I actually enjoy coaching them more than any group I've coached before, because I think they're all appreciative, and I think that's part of COVID. I think same for parents. I think they're just appreciative that they can do it, so it's made it a really enjoyable group, and plus with the coaching team like Sean, Andy, Kieran, the Learn Swim group that we've got, and Gillian in the office and stuff like that. Like they make it enjoyable, and they make everything, for me easy to do. And I include that with the committee. It's been hard, like 3 years, 4 years for them, and they've had to make some really hard decisions. And it's not always been the ones we've all agreed on, but where we are now, you've got to say we've done right by everyone. And so yeah, I'm really thankful to them as well. So that's part of it. If I get a good group of kids in terms of attitude and politeness and stuff like that, then that makes life really easy. Obviously, if that changes and kids don't want to buy into the program, or my coaching is not what they want, sometimes it is about the coaching style and what you're doing. Again, we'll try something new this year. Like I'm always trying to change. You don't want to be the same every year because it doesn't always work. And see what, if that works, it's great. And if it doesn't, you're like, oh, got to go back and look at what we're doing. So for me, yeah, everything stays the same for the moment. I mean, again, I say this. I remember in 2010 when I thought, oh yeah, it's all hunky dory, and within 3 months I was in Australia doing something different. So yeah, I think in the world of sport things change rapidly, pretty quickly, and so I would hope to say this time next year I'm still in the same position, feeling the same about everything we're doing. But yeah, loving it at the moment, appreciative of all the support locally, and particularly the parents and the swimmers. So it's been good.
No, brilliant, brilliant. Great to have you on today, Nathan. Really enjoyed it.
Cheers, buddy. Thank you very much.
Good, good. Right, that was another episode of Sportscast Jersey. Thank you for watching or listening. A new episode is coming soon.